Biology, Joshua Woodward. His concentration is human performance, and today he's going to be talking about the strategic protein intake and timing in exercise performance. Joshua.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Dr. K just said, this presentation is going to be on strategic protein intake and timing in exercise performance, with a focus on how protein timing improves muscle protein synthesis. As he said, my name is Joshua Woodward. I'm a graduate student in the Health and Physical Education Department here at Jacksonville State University, and I'm also a strength and conditioning coach in the state of Georgia. I want to begin the presentation by posing a question you ought to think about while I talk about the topic. How does protein intake impact performance? Well, in 2017, Yeager and his colleagues published an article in the International Society of Sports Nutrition Journal that updated the ISSN's position stand on protein intake and timing. The article in question discussed 13 position points in which it ranged from proper protein intake amount all the way to how different types of protein impact athletic performance. The main objective of the research was to support the ISSN's claim that muscle protein synthesis, or MPS as I'll refer to it throughout the rest of the presentation, can be activated at optimal levels when protein consumption is paired with resistance training. Now, this is going to occur whether protein is ingested before exercise or after exercise, and it's crucial for all of you and those in the general public looking to make improvements in their lean body mass, make strength gains in the weight room, or to achieve optimal levels of muscle hypertrophy. Before I can dive into protein timing, we first need to address the recommended daily allowance of protein in your daily diet. The ISSN recommends that 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day for protein intake. Now I know that sounds like a lot, but it essentially equates to 1 gram of protein per 2 pounds of an individual's body weight. Now, those rates increase for active individuals to 1.2 to 2.4 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Now, when you're consuming your protein, you need to make sure that you're consuming those sources, or your protein, from mostly food sources, as mentioned in the presentation before me. I'm glad you can follow that up. When planning your protein, you should plan your meals to happen every 3 to 4 hours, and we'll continue to talk about that as we move forward. With protein timing, it's very important to understand that muscle protein synthesis occurs after exercise, and you can increase the rates of muscle protein synthesis by 30 to 100% if you consume a protein-containing meal before or after exercise. When you consume a protein meal before you work out or before you train, your body is going to not only increase those rates of muscle protein synthesis, but it's also going to increase nutrient delivery rates throughout your body. Now, while we have done a lot of research in, kinesiology, while we've done a lot of research about muscle protein synthesis and its lasting effects of 24 hours post-exercise, it's important to understand that while it does last for 24 hours, the effects begin to wane as time goes on. And there's an optimal window, and it's often referred to as the anabolic window by people online, by influencers that you might know, or some of your friends you might meet in the weight room. But that anabolic window I refer to as the golden window that you need to consume protein post-exercise. 30 minutes post-exercise is when your signaling protein activity peaks, and it begins to wane after 60 minutes. So that 30 to 60 minute window after exercise is the best time for you to get your protein in if you're going to consume it post-workout. With that being said, there really hasn't been a whole lot of research talking about the negative effects of protein consumption before and after workouts, and we'll talk about that later when I address supplementation. And this is so much important. This is so important because we even recommend that young athletes take in 20 to 30 grams of protein before or after workouts. Now that's going to depend not only on their age, but the volume of training they're doing, the intensity of the training, the activities they're participating outside of the training, and what sport focus they have. One thing that I think is super important when you talk about protein timing is pre-sleep protein. A lot of people are leaving gains on the table by not taking in some type of protein before they go to bed. I know a lot of my vegetarian friends struggle with this, and once I started doing this research and we started having these conversations, they implemented a soy-based protein that kind of helped them with this. And so there's a study that they completed that the article cites where nighttime protein supplementation has shown if casein protein is supplemented that your body is going to achieve muscle protein synthesis throughout the night. You're also not going to be hungry when you wake up in the morning, and it's going to lead to an overall increase in fat loss. Now that we've talked about protein timing, I want to focus on its impacts on performance. Now, as she said before in the presentation, endurance athletes don't get a whole lot of benefits from protein. They really don't. Now, with that being said, it is important to understand that additional protein intake for endurance athletes does suppress the rise of plasma proteins that cause myofibrillar damage. It also increases the rate of recovery, makes them able to perform better the next day. Now, my focus is on the resistance training aspect of protein supplementation. Sorry. Made me laugh back there. The focus on the resistance training for protein supplementation, because that's where we see the most benefits. When you supplement protein as your resistance train, not only are you going to make strength gains, but you're also going to be able to achieve those optimal levels of muscle hypertrophy or growing your muscle size. A study done on college football players and strength gains showed that football players who supplemented protein at the higher range of the RDA experienced statistically significant increases in their bench press and squat maxes when compared to their counterparts who only consumed the lower range of the recommended daily allowance. Not only does our protein consumption impact our performance, but it also can impact an athlete's body composition and your composition. When you pair a high caloric diet with a high intensity training program and a higher protein diet, you are going to experience increases in lean body mass. And on the other side of the spectrum, if you continue that high amount of protein supplementation in your diet with a lower caloric input, which is lower than your normal maintenance calories, you're going to experience more fat loss. And this has been proven in the simplest way I can put this, and what I tell the athletes that I coach all the time is the more protein you have and the less you're eating caloric-wise, you're going to gain more muscle and less fat because your body's going to utilize that protein to rebuild that muscle, and it doesn't have a lot of other things to establish and create more body fat. As I said before, I do want to address supplementation, and I loved your question in the previous presentation because supplementation has been proven to be a cost-effective and practical means of acquiring and meeting your recommended daily intake for protein. While there haven't been a whole lot of studies to show the negative side effects, there have been studies focused on the hepatorenal damage that could be caused by protein supplementation. But because supplementation is so widely used throughout our country and the world right now to meet those RDAs, it has not shown a whole lot of negative impacts on hepatorenal damage. And so supplementation has been proven to be a safe, cost-effective, and practical means of a way to meet your protein intake. It's also, I've got to cover it because it's so important, whey protein has been proven to be the most effective means of supplementation. And I'm going to pull this up right here so I can compare 3 different types of protein that the study mentions. Whey on the left is going to, it tells you it has a distinct advantage over casein and soy because it is a milk-based protein. It is derived from a primary food source. It is a fast digesting protein and has a higher amino acid concentration than the other 2. Moving to the second type of protein, casein. Casein protein has shown, as I said earlier, to be a more beneficial pre-sleep protein because it is a slow digesting and it allows your body to slowly work through that protein over the night instead of quickly like it would with a whey protein in the middle of the day. It is also the lowest activator of muscle protein synthesis because out of the 3 proteins that I'm going to talk about, it's the lowest amount of essential amino acids. The third type of protein being soy, and like I said, I do have a lot of vegetarian friends in the strength conditioning world who are super big on plant-based diets, and they swear by soy protein. The only problem with soy protein is its low amino acid count. It does outperform casein in activating muscle protein synthesis, but it still falls short of whey because of its low amino acid count. I want to conclude by just repeating a couple of the critical elements that I covered in my presentation. 1, the recommended daily allowance for protein for active individuals should be 1.2 to 2.4 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. That protein should primarily come from food sources, but if you don't have the access to food like everybody in the country does, supplementation is also an effective means to meet your RDA. And I do want to answer the question that I asked you at the beginning. Protein intake has a positive impact on resistance training exercise because it allows you to recover faster, it allows you to make better strength gains, and helps you achieve those levels of muscle hypertrophy and grow in size. Here I've listed my reference of the ISSN article that I cited during this presentation. And I would like to now open the floor for any questions.
I have one question, just
Yes, ma'am.
point of clarification. What is myofibrillar damage?
So myofibrillar damage, that's a great question. I tried to use some terms that I could,
Right.
but myofibrillar damage is damage to muscles that occurs when you're exercising. So it's like little microscopic tears in layman terms, so that you can, you're not actually tearing your muscle in half, but it's little things that happen in your muscles when you're exercising, when you're doing a bicep curl, and you start to feel like, oh man, that's hurting, that's sore. It's those little tears that are eventually going to get repaired by those amino acids and protein.
Right. And just as a follow-up, you know, it seems like in the last 6 to 12 months, but primarily in the last 6 months, we are seeing so much emphasis on protein, 30 grams every meal, all this. Is this a result of research that is going on, or is it, do you think, I mean, obviously you've done the research, but is it also another kind of food fad that we've seen over time?
So part of it is a food fad. I think that, you know, as we shift and we try and follow all these yo-yo diets, and then a lot of research comes out supporting, hey, protein is going to help you lose weight. But what they don't also cite is you can't just eat these protein-based foods. You've got to also do the exercise, and you have to be consistent about it.
That's the part that they leave out.
That is a big part that they leave out.
It's huge. I mean,
It
they
is.
say eat 30 grams, all these things, and then at the end of the day, you've had 2,400 calories and you've not hit a lick anything, and then you think, well, they told me to eat this, why am I not losing weight? So to your point, they leave out the most important part.
Yes, ma'am. You would be surprised at how many athletes that I coach throughout the day. They're like, Coach Woodward, I ate 30 grams of protein at lunch today. Okay, but did you come to weights today? Did you exercise?
Right.
Oh, I have to do that too? Oh no. Yes.
Do you think it is a smart choice to have a common ground between taking supplements and food instead of doing one or the other?
The research shows that if you have the option to get all of your protein from food sources, then that's the way to go. If you have the means, the funds, the access to the food, and you can do that, yeah, go for it and do all your meals protein-centric and tackle your goal that way. If you're somebody who, like I teach and coach in a Title I school, so not all of my students have access to those food sources that they can get all their protein from. So supplementation is something that they have to do, because it gives them access to the things that they necessarily wouldn't have access to. That's a great question, thank you.
Let's thank our speaker.